Welcome to On Mac Development. Conversations and tutorials on today's latest technology in Mac software, applications, programming, and development. You can access related resources, recommended reading, special offers, and more when you visit the On Mac Development Resource Center at informit.com/MacDEV Center.
Hi, my name is Diane Daniel, and I'm here at the Voices That Matter iPhone Developers Conference, and I'm here with Aaron Hillegass.
Right.
Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you.
So you presented this morning, you presented the keynote. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
What I presented in the keynote was really strategies for trying to rise above the noise. With the iPhone App Store, there's now 85,000 apps. And even though there's more and more iPhone users every day, so the market is growing, in this very fragmented space, you really need to do something impressive to rise above that. And so I went over 4 strategies, really. The first one was making your app free. So if all your competitors are charging for it, try and find some way to make the app for free by, for example, doing ads inside the application. Okay. Another approach was to be first. So establish yourself within a particular area and just maintain that. And one of the ways to do that is to look at what the nerds are doing today, and that's what everybody else is going to be doing in a year or two. So the example being Twitter. 2 years ago, there was only nerds on Twitter, and today everybody's on it. So if you had gone into that space and solved that problem well for the nerds, you would have been really well situated when the rest of the population showed up. The third strategy was to pick a particular niche. Once again, pick a group of people who have a problem that you can solve it, and charge for that. And then the fourth strategy is just overwhelming quality, to just do something of such a high level that no one can compete with you. And what this involves really is investing up front in design. So hiring a designer to work with you to create a look and a feel for the application, not just rely upon your developer's approach to it. To do really difficult things, to create barriers to entry for other people. So do things that are technically difficult. So the example being Delicious Library, for example, managed to do barcode scanning with the camera. This was really very difficult to do, and it kept his competitors from being able to approach his product's popularity for months and months because they hadn't figured out how to do it as well. Another part is to actually have a marketing budget. So figure that you're going to have to spend some time working on PR and advertising to spread the name of your application. When the App Store first came out, that wasn't necessary. All you had to do was be there. But now we need to start to think, this is now a mature market and we need to deal with it as a mature market. Another sort of fragmentation that's happening is new types of phones are coming out. So Android, the Blackberries, they're going to be competing for market share as well. If you're going to spend all this time working on the design and doing the marketing, you should probably also plan on porting the application to the other platforms so that you can be dominant on those as well. So when you're doing your design, you need to keep in mind that you're going to be porting to other sorts of platforms. Once you set your mind on that idea of doing very high quality, one of the important steps is to hire a real developer. And that may be hiring someone, or it may mean going and getting trained yourself so that you can actually be a developer and understand what's going on. Because what we saw for a long time was people were just downloading Apple's sample code and then trying to tweak it until it did what they wanted without really understanding what was going on. And this led to really poor, limited applications and very high maintenance costs. So even though a real programmer is more expensive up front, in terms of long-term costs and getting to market more quickly, it can make a huge difference. Another thing that I talked about was the use of animation. That animation should make it less jarring for people. An example that I used was Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is a TV show that starred Fred Rogers, and when Fred Rogers would walk out of the room, the child would see him walk out, and then they would cut to the other room and the child would see him walk in. That way it wasn't a jarring experience for the child. And when you're using animation, I really try and use the Fred Rogers model for that. I don't use gratuitous animation, but it's set up so that the user isn't surprised.
Interesting. I have to ask you though, some of the things that you're talking about sound pretty complicated, and we're here at a developers conference, and some people may be new to even trying to think of developing an app for the iPhone. When you're giving all of this advice, are you thinking of it in terms of more, you mentioned maturity, and are you thinking of it more in terms of like a company, or could this be as applicable to a new developer? And if so, how, when they're already trying to just, learn language and framework, can they tackle that?
Sure. So that's a really good question, but we have to remember that all these big companies were once small companies, and that's where it starts, with a person working hard to understand the platform and create a world-class application for it. And so I think the ideas are applicable both to the single person working evenings after his day job and to large corporations who are preparing to branch off into this new platform.
Any thoughts on if I'm new to this, but I want to do that, I want to create something that's of quality. How do I do that when I'm just learning, and I want to get out there and do really cool stuff right away? What do you think?
Well, now my company does training, so I'm biased here, but I think really the way to do it is to invest up front in learning how to do it. Whether that means you need to just take some time and read book after book and do some experiments, or if you want to come for training, these sorts of investments pay off very quickly because your development will go so much more quickly, and the maintenance cost of your application will be so much lower.
Rather than rushing ahead and
trying to do the product immediately.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Any other advice that you could think of that someone just coming to this might need to know? Advice for the new developer?
There's so much advice. Sure it just goes on and on.
Maybe just a few nuggets.
Yes. So I think it's very important to recognize your strengths and your weaknesses. And if you're a programmer, it's not likely that you also have the aesthetic skills of an artist designer. Okay. And so I think it's very important that you bring together teams of people, even on a small app. It could be a team that only exists for a month or two, but bring together teams of people who bring really good skills to the table. So someone with some business sense, someone who can write code, and a designer, and not try and be all things.
To yourself. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for podcasting with us. Remember to visit the On Mac Dev Resource Center, where you can access recommended reading, special offers, and more at informit.com/MacDevCenter. Be sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a single episode. Brought to you by Inform IT, the trusted technology learning source.